Does the defense have any witness statements they wish to present to the court?
No, and we're not making any statements at this time.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Devereaux, I assume the answer is the same for Ms. Rodriguez, but for the record, I'm just going to inquire with her briefly. Do you need a moment to speak with her before I do?
Just a moment, thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Rodriguez, is there anything that you would like to tell me before I impose sentence in this case? You certainly don't have to if you don't want to.
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Ms. Rodriguez, as to count one, the only sentence that the law provides for is life in prison without the possibility of parole. Under the circumstances of this case, that is the only sentence the court legally can provide. It's also the only sentence the court can provide if there is to be any sense of justice out of these proceedings. Ms. Rodriguez, your actions were horrible. Your decisions were horrible, both in the commission of this act and the choices that you made after this act. It is a struggle for this court to understand how you can go from meeting a person to viciously stabbing them in the neck until they are dead in the course of a few hours. It's one of the most disturbing cases that I think has been before this court since I've had this job. Because everything that I've heard about Mr. Dickerson indicates that he is blameless in this whole scenario. The man that I saw on the surveillance video in downtown Greeley didn't appear to me to be a creepy man, a disturbed man, a dangerous man. If anything, he seemed to me to be a slightly lonely man, just at the bars attempting to make some contact with other people that evening. One of the hardest things about my job is that I am forced to meet wonderful and caring parents like Mr. and Ms. Dickerson in the back of the courtroom under just the most tragic circumstances that they've unfortunately had to go through in their lives. It is the loss of a life under any circumstances and tragic, but when parents have to bury a child, even if that child is grown, Mr. Dickerson and Ms. Dickerson, I can't even imagine the pain that you have gone through. And I wanted to say to both of you, I very much appreciate the respectful way that you have carried yourself throughout the course of these years as this case has progressed. I don't know that very many people would have the capacity to carry themselves in such a respectful way under such horrible circumstances, but I am appreciated. I am very much appreciative for the participation that you've shown throughout this process and your willingness to be here every day to ensure that your son's memory is not forgotten by anyone and that your loss is not forgotten by anyone. Ms. Rodriguez, there's nothing that I can say about this act that in any way paints it in any sort of justifiable or excusable light. There's no context to this matter that makes it less horrible. So as I've stated, the sentence in this matter is just, it is deserved, it is necessary, and it is appropriate under these circumstances. Ms. Rodriguez, what I need you to consider is what you do tomorrow, what you do a year from now, and what you do 10 years from now, and what you do the rest of your life. Ms. Rodriguez, you're going to spend the rest of your natural life in the Department of Corrections, but you will still be alive. And Ms. Rodriguez, you're very young. I would imagine that the person that you are 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, probably has a very different perspective on the actions that caused you to be before the court today. As you spend the rest of your life in the Department of Corrections, I imagine that you're going to have interactions with many young women coming into prison, women who are lost, women who are broken, women who are scared. You're going to have to make a decision if you're going to have any meaning in your life going forward on who the person you want to be to those people you interact with. You will have an opportunity to take these hard lessons and perhaps convey some knowledge and perhaps present some comfort to the many people that I imagine that you'll interact with over the years. And you're going to have an influence on them, and that influence is either going to be positive or negative. If you're going to find any peace with your existence going forward, I hope that you give that some consideration. I hope you consider what you can do in the time that you have, in the environment that you'll be in, to have some sort of positive impact in this world. You will never be able to make it up to the Dickersons for the harm that you caused their son. But with time, you might be able to demonstrate to them that you should not be completely and totally defined by the most horrible choice that you've ever made in your life. I don't know what you are going to do from this point forward, but I hope that whatever your choices are going forward, that they are thoughtful choices, they're considerate choices, and I hope that you find some peace in the rest of your existence. With that, the court, regarding the charges for which the jury has reached a verdict, is going to issue the following sentence. As to count 1, murder in the first degree, the court will sentence you to serve the rest of your natural life in prison without the possibility of parole. With respect to count 2, first-degree arson, the court is going to sentence you to 32 years in the Department of Corrections. That sentence will run consecutively with count 1. With respect to count 3, tampering with a deceased human body, the court is going to sentence you to 12 years in the Department of Corrections. That count will run consecutively with the other counts. As to counts 4 and 5, the court on each count is going to sentence you to 12 years in the Department of Corrections. Counts 4 and 5 will run concurrently with each other, but consecutively with counts 1, 2, and 3. Ms. Devereaux, the state had mentioned indication of pre-sentence confinement of 1,257 days. Do you believe that is accurate? All right. The court will note for the record that you have been in custody 1,257 days in this matter. Mr. Paralia, Mr. McCormick, I don't think you mentioned it in your sentencing argument, but does the state wish to make any record regarding restitution?
But we do, Judge. In this particular case, we're requesting $2,505.21 payable to the Crime Victims Compensation. We're asking for $286,527.34 to Farmers Insurance.
And let me make sure I have that last number, $286,527 and
34 cents.
34 cents.
So that total would be $286,000 or $286,032.55.
I'm sorry, Mr. McCormick.
I know.
I want to make sure that I have this correctly because I think I heard two different amounts. So the first amount that I heard was $2,505.21 that is payable to Crime Victim Compensation.
Correct.
And then the second payee was to Farmers Insurance. Was there only two payees?
Just those two.
And then can you repeat the amount for the Farmers Insurance? Because I think
yes, that was 286, 527.34.
3.4, okay.
So the grand total would be 286,032.55.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think that's may have been where I
Right.
misunderstood you. Okay.
And we're asking that that be joint and several with the co-defendant in this case, Hosanna Varela, and that case number is 21CR2250.
2250. And Mr. McCormick, will the state be able to follow up with a written motion today?
I believe it's in the process and will be filed shortly.
All right, thank you. Ms. Devereaux, what I am going to do, I am going to conditionally order that restitution amount pending any request for a hearing by the defendant. I'll give you 30 days to file any request for a hearing if you choose to do so. It will be a condition of this sentence, Ms. Rodriguez, that you be liable for the payment of restitution in the amount of $2,505.21 payable to the Crime Victim Compensation Board and liable for restitution in the amount of $286,527.34 payable to Farmers Insurance, and I will review the motion filed by the state once that is provided to the court. Ms. Rodriguez, given your sentence, I do find that you are currently indigent and lack the current financial ability to pay some of these fees. I am going to waive any waivable costs and fees that are associated with this case. You will remain liable for any mandatory fees that I must impose, as well as the restitution judgment that I've entered today, pending any future hearings on the matter. Ms. Rodriguez, for what it's worth, I genuinely hope that you do find some peace in your existence after you leave this courtroom. I don't expect that it will happen tomorrow, and it may not happen a year from now or 10 years from now. But just as Mr. Dickerson deserved to live a life unmolested by this sort of pain and agony and hurt, we all deserve to live a life where we have some peace and some type of fulfillment in our existence. So I hope you consider that in the choices that you make after you leave this courtroom. With that, that will be the decision of the court. Mr. Pralia, is there any other record the state needs to make today?
Judge, we also will be filing a cost of prosecution. We just need to get those numbers together as well.
All right. And Ms. Devereaux, for the purposes of any future appeal, I will find that the defendant is indigent and lacking funds to pay for either counsel or any transcripts on appeal. I just ask that you follow up with any written motions you believe are necessary to document that issue. Ms. Devereaux, is there any other record the defense needs to make today? No. All right. That will be the order of the court, and the court will be in recess until 3 p.m.